Hello and welcome to the day ahead. It's Thursday, July the 16th. I'm Andrew Gagan. Well, the local market is set to open slightly higher with ASX futures up 15 points. Global equities were mostly positive overnight as investors digested softer than expected US inflation and another day of strong earnings reports, while oil prices rose further as the US launched more strikes against Iran. On Wall Street, the major indices closed modestly higher despite weakness in semiconductors, with solid bank earnings adding momentum to an impressive start to second quarter reporting season. The bank results have been fueled by a surge in IPOs, mergers and debt issuance. Morgan Stanley beat quarterly profit expectations, posting record revenue driven by strong deals activity and $10 trillion in wealth management assets. And BlackRock, the world's largest money manager, saw its managed assets jump to a record of $15.3 trillion in the quarter. Johnson & Johnson's medical device unit underperformed in the second quarter, yet it still managed to beat Wall Street estimates. United Airlines expects full-year profit at the high end of its previous forecast as strong travel demand and higher fares help offset a renewed surge in fuel costs, even as its third quarter earnings outlook fell well short of Wall Street expectations. Outside of earnings results, PayPal shares surged 17% on reports that Stripe and private equity firm Advent International have jointly offered to acquire it for $53 billion, a 28% premium to its last closing price. And SpaceX shares dropped below their IPO price for the first time before closing just above that level, with investors increasingly concerned over debt-funded AI spending. Well, US producer prices unexpectedly fell in June, falling 0.3%, their biggest decline in 14 months, amid a pullback in the cost of energy, further evidence that inflation was subsiding before the recent escalation in the Middle East conflict. Excluding food and energy, the core producer price gained 0.2% after increasing 0.7% for 2 straight months. And the Fed's Beige Book of regional economic conditions showed US economic activity increased at a slight to moderate pace in recent weeks, as most regions experienced little to no change in employment levels. On the geopolitical front, US forces struck Iran's coastal defence and missile sites overnight after reimposing a naval blockade of its ports, while Iran threatened to shut off more regional energy exports, saying it was engaged in an existential war with America. Well, US Treasury yields fell following the latest inflation data, with the 2-year down to 4.12%, while the 10-year yield was at 4.54%. Australian 3-year government bond yield futures fell to 4.46%, the 10-year at 4.91%. US dollar index down close to 0.5% over the session. The Aussie is back above 70 US cents, 70.1. Well, oil prices have risen slightly more, tempered by stronger than expected inventories, while traders appear to ignore a new wave of US attacks against Iranian military installations that aim to limit Tehran's ability to strike shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Brent futures closing at close to $85 a barrel. Gold was broadly steady at around $4,060 an ounce. Copper futures little changed, while iron ore rose close to 0.5% at 102 US a tonne. And Bitcoin is currently trading below 65,000 US dollars. Locally today, we get the Melbourne Institute's Inflation Expectations Survey. On the corporate calendar, we get quarterly updates from AMP, BHP, Netwealth, and an earnings report from Alcoa. That is your day ahead. See you again tomorrow.